And live stream. That's pretty nice. I mean, I'm sure we'll go through introductions. I'm Lori Rigby. I'm the compliance officer for the city of Oceanside. Looks like we have Scott Spiegel, our chief plant operator, signed on, and Daniel Cotter, our operations supervisor.
Thank you, Lori. I mean, I know that Don will take care of all those activities for the record.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yes, we'll do swearing in, and then we'll go around and everybody can introduce themselves.
Okay.
As you can see that background, that's Oceanside.
Yeah, it is. We've seen that image a lot on every consultant proposal ever submitted to the city.
Yeah, but that's my picture.
Definitely known for that pier around here.
So Mary, are we waiting for anybody else from APCD to join us?
You know, I don't know that. I'm not sure if William Jacks is going to be joining. He mentioned he might join, but be a little bit late. So
Okay.
With that information, I mean, we can go ahead and start whenever you're ready.
Okay, I have someone calling in, so I'm going to ask them to unmute themselves and identify themselves so that we know who all is here.
I also invited Rudy Guzman, the water division manager, to this meeting. Let me see if that's his extension. It looks like Scott's extension.
Okay, Madam Chair, it is 7:30 and it looks like we can get started whenever you're ready.
Perfect. No, so thank you so very much, everybody. I mean, that it is November 3rd, November 3rd of 2021. And today we're meeting as an emergency variance. I mean, this is the Air Pollution Control District Hearing Board. And excuse me. Sorry, that is a little bit early. I mean, that this morning for this meeting, but definitely we need to take care of, items. Again, because, we're actually hearing, an emergency variance request. So, before we actually get started, I mean, I will allow Dawn, to call the roll and swear on the witnesses. Madam Clerk? Oh, no. Did we lose her?
No, sorry, I didn't realize I was on mute.
That's okay.
Okay, so we did have a couple of other people just join us. So what we're going to do is start with this swearing in of everybody, and then we'll go around and have everybody introduce themselves. Okay, so if there's anybody that is on the phone or is joining us today via Zoom, what we're going to do now is I will swear in anyone who would like to speak during today's emergency variance hearing. This includes any members of the public that are joining us, APCD staff, petitioners, and any of their representatives that will be speaking today during the emergency variance hearing. So at this time, I ask everyone to turn on your video, and if you're on the phone, please raise your right hand, everybody. And then, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you give in the matter before this hearing board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. I will now ask the following individuals to please identify themselves for the record. Chair Rodriguez.
Present.
Air Pollution Control District staff.
Hi, I'm Mary Mahoney, Civil Actions Investigator with the district.
William Jacks, Chief of Compliance, the district.
Heather McGee Hill, Civil Actions Investigator for the district.
Okay, and then anybody else on the call that's either the petitioner or representing the petitioner during this emergency hearing.
Lori Rigby, City of Oceanside Compliance Officer.
Rudy Guzman, Water Utilities Division Manager, City of Oceanside.
Scott Spiegel, Chief Plant Operator, San Luis Rey Facility.
And our operations supervisor is having an issue unmuting his phone. So if there's anyone who's in charge of the meeting who can unmute that 3622 number.
Okay, I'm asking him to unmute, but I'm not sure. He might have to hang up and call back in.
This is
Don,
Ryan
I don't know if
Williams.
you can hear me. This is
I'm sorry, who is that speaking?
William Jacks from the district. I was just to make a suggestion to unmute from the phone. You hit *6.
This is Dan Cotter, Operational Supervisor for San Luis Rey Water Reclamation Facility.
This is Ryan Williams, Plant Maintenance Supervisor, City of Oceanside.
Okay, I see we have I'm McDermott. They're still connecting to audio, so we'll give that a few seconds.
This is Ian McDermott. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Oh, so you're joining
Okay,
us
I'm
via
here.
phone
Sorry.
and video. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So you're gonna see me on video, and then I'm on phone. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. So we were just doing introductions. If you want to introduce yourself.
Ian McDermott, one of the operations supervisors here at San Luis Rey.
Okay, it looks like we have everybody on the phone. So was there anybody that joined us late that missed being sworn in that is going to speak on the topic that's before us today for the emergency variance? So everybody was sworn in.
Don, did you get, that there's a person actually joining Mr. Spiegel, just now I see it on the video. Did that person also, that person sworn in as well?
Yes, I was sworn in.
Perfect.
Okay, and everybody that is joining us via phone also was sworn in?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because if you have not been sworn in, please let me know now before we start the meeting. So before we start the meeting, I just want to check with petitioner. Does it look like everybody is joining us from the city of Oceanside? Or are we waiting for anybody else?
We're no longer waiting for anyone else from Oceanside.
Okay, Chair Rodriguez, it sounds like everybody is present and sworn in, so you may proceed with the hearing.
Thank you so very much, Madam Clerk, and thank you everybody again for joining today. I know again that is a little bit early, but I just want to just review a couple of procedural rules here. Even though we're going to be keeping this meeting really very fluid, we still have orders that we need to abide by. For example, we're going to be providing the APCD the first opportunity to present the case. Then the City of Oceanside will address those elements for which the APCD has presented that are of concern. So that's one of the rules. The second one, but that is the most important to me, for example, is that we can definitely classify this as an emergency variance, because I see some dates, going back and forth on this one. I want to make sure that that we meet actually the requirements of rule, that I believe 98 or in this case. So doing that, so we're gonna open, the right now, to see if there are any questions, from City of Oceanside at this moment. I believe not, so thank you so very much. Feel free definitely to raise your hand, and in that way, that Madam Clerk is going to be able to monitor, the screen, and for the ones of you certainly on the phone, you may that kindly interrupt or actually get back, with Madam Clerk, on that element if you actually need to speak on behalf, of the petitioner, for example. So. I believe, Ms. Mahoney, hi, Mary, good morning, so thanks for joining us again. And
Madam Chair, do you want me to provide a little introduction, like an overview of what today's emergency variance is going to be about?
Sure.
Okay, so I'll do that real quick. So we're going to hear emergency variance for petition 4524 from the City of Oceanside regarding their wastewater treatment plant. So petitioner had filed a request for an emergency variance from the conditions of permit APCD 2006-PTO-920530 due to a breakdown of a blower associated with an air pollution control device at their wastewater treatment plant located at 3950 North River Road in Oceanside, California. Also to note is that on November 2nd, yesterday, the clerk of the board was in receipt of a request for an interim and regular variance. So the interim variance hearing for the City of Oceanside will take place at the regular hearing board meeting on November 18th, and the regular variance hearing will take place at the regular hearing board meeting scheduled on December 9th.
Well, no, thank you for that introduction, Dawn. I'm sorry that I skipped on that one. So, if with that introduction, certainly, let's actually go again, with the APCD. And Mary, I would like, for you to definitely address, the issues, that I actually presented today, particularly let's start, to make sure that, this petition can actually be heard because it actually meets, the rules of the emergency rules. So go ahead, please.
Okay, well, thank you and good morning, everyone. I have prepared a brief opening summary that goes over the background of the facility, including some compliance history, information about the recent breakdown request. And then I also have prepared to discuss the findings for an emergency variance as well. So to begin with, I'll start with an equipment description. Petitioner operates a wastewater treatment plant located at 3950 North River Road in Oceanside. Petitioner has 9 active permits, including this one that is the subject of today's hearing, which is APCD 2006 PTO 920530. And that is for the secondary sewage system treatment plant. And petitioner provides an essential public service. They operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The throughput of the facility is 3.5 million gallons per day, and this is a secondary sewage treatment plant. The process includes an influent lift station, which is controlled by a caustic scrubber, a headworks and load equalization tank, also controlled by caustic scrubbers, a second load equalization tank controlled by a caustic mist scrubber, aeration basins that are controlled by 2 caustic scrubbers, one of which is the subject of today's variance, and also secondary clarifiers and chemical feed systems, monitoring equipment, pumps, blowers, piping, ducting, and valves. The scrubber of interest for today's hearing is the aeration basin scrubber at 24,000 CFM, linked to the aeration basin. The blower is referred to by petitioner as the 1510 blower. And originally, petitioner was only seeking relief today from condition number 4 of their permit. Condition 4 reads, the air pollution control equipment shall be maintained in good operating condition, shall be in full operation in accordance with the facility operations and maintenance manual at all times when the process equipment is in operation, except during periods of scheduled equipment maintenance, not to exceed 3 consecutive days. The district must be notified of all air pollution control equipment maintenance outages exceeding 24 hours. Notification must be submitted in writing within 2 calendar days before or after the initial maintenance outage. And then also the logs of the date, duration, and purpose of all air pollution control equipment outages for scheduled maintenance shall be maintained on site for 3 years and made available to the district upon request. However, petitioner intends to expand their variance request today to also include permit conditions 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7. So briefly, the first 3 conditions include standards for the pH oxidation reduction potential, or ORP, and recirculation flow. And this is for all scrubbers under this permit. These standards of pH are 8 or greater, an ORP value of 575 MV or greater, except during startup, and 275 gallons per minute or greater, respectively. Conditions 1 through 3 also require that their respective parameters are recorded daily. Condition 5 reads, at no time shall the subject equipment cause or contribute to a public nuisance as specified in District Rule 51. If compliance with Rule 51 cannot be demonstrated to the satisfaction of the district, the permittee will take whatever corrective action necessary to meet applicable requirements. If corrective action requires any physical change or modification to the subject equipment, the permittee shall apply for and obtain an authority to construct for all such modifications. And finally, condition 7 reads, operation must be in compliance with all information provided in conjunction with this application and the performance conditions listed above. So moving on to the most recent breakdown that was called in. So prior to requesting the emergency variance, petitioner sought immediate breakdown relief via District Rule 98. The district conducted a breakdown inspection on Friday, October 29th, 2021. The breakdown was not called into the district within the first 2 hours post discovery of the breakdown. The breakdown was called in approximately a little over 24 hours later. Had the breakdown been noticed within the first 2 hours of discovery, the breakdown would have been deemed valid for the first 24 hours. Since the breakdown was not called in on time, the district issued a notice of violation for failing to maintain the air pollution control equipment in good operating condition, and for it not being in full operation at all times when the process equipment is in operation. That is condition 4 of the permit. And then also for not maintaining daily records for conditions 1 through 3 on the permit starting on October 27th, and for not having visual displays for the standards explained in conditions 1 through 3. The aeration scrubber is currently out of service. The 510 blower for the scrubber was found to have strong vibrations on October 26, 2021. The vibrations were so intense that the blower was no longer able to remain bolted to the concrete foundation pad. The anchor bolts around the casing sheared. Per the work orders submitted with this petition, the blower was identified as having unusual vibrations on September 7th, 2021. And on October 19th, the work order comments stated that mechanics had exercised all options and are currently waiting on a replacement. The blower gave out completely on October 26, 2021. The last breakdown under this permit occurred in 2016. September 22nd, 2016, the headwork scrubber recirculation flow was below 275 gallons per minute. The breakdown was reported within 2 hours of discovery, and the cause of the problem was identified as being buildup in the recirculation pipe. There were no odor complaints during this breakdown, and it was deemed a valid breakdown. In total, there have been 36 breakdowns under the secondary wastewater treatment process, with 32 of the 36 breakdowns being under this permit, and 2 having occurred in the last 5 years, including the breakdown relevant to this petition. I'm going to move on to the compliance history. There have been no notices of violations for this permit issued over the last 4 years. The facility has had 6 notices of violation issued in total, including the one that was issued yesterday. Prior to yesterday, the last notice of violation was issued in 2016 and included compliance issues with the permit that are the subject of today's hearing. The NOV was issued failing to maintain pH levels of the caustic solution above 8 and failure to maintain recirculation flow rate on 3 occasions. And also under a different permit, the facility failed to maintain hydrogen sulfide limit of 300 ppmv and failed to record the hydrogen sulfide readings for a 1-week period. So I'm going to move on to complaint history. The last complaint under this permit occurred in 2014, and it was called in due to odors. So 2 odor complaints were received in 2014, 2 complaints were received in 2013, 1 was received in 2012, 5 in 2011, for a total of 10 odor complaints for the facility. For hearing board history, there was a petition in 2015 for this permit due to a scrubber having leaks, and the petitioner replaced the corroding pipes in under 30 days and was able to add bleach and caustic chemicals to mitigate odor complaints. That emergency variance was granted in February of 2015. And so I'm now going to go over some of the findings that would support an emergency variance decision today. So finding A is good cause. And the district has a comment regarding finding A3, which reads, what is your plan and time frame for returning to compliance? For relief from condition 4 as originally requested, the district notes that petitioner has developed a temporary plan that includes welding the blower, replacing the bearing, and that could be completed in 2 weeks' time, potentially. Petitioner also has a plan for mitigating air pollution, such as keeping the affected aeration basin covered at all times and increasing the use of chemicals and masking agents. The petitioner should provide any available updates to their timeline today. For finding B, the finding states that the situation as outlined in the request should constitute an emergency. And there are 4 questions under this finding. And for B1, it reads, why is this situation emergency? So the district notes that petitioner is providing an essential public service. For finding B3, which reads, when did you discover the situation? The district notes that petitioner's work order detail reports that were included with the petition as supplemental information identify the vibrational issues with the blower on September 7th, which is earlier than October 26th, stated in the petition. The district recommends that petitioner clarify the timeline starting from when the problem was first identified to support findings of good cause and for being a valid emergency. So finding C reads, the operation resulting from the variance shall not create a private or public nuisance. And for finding C2, which reads, if you are granted a variance, what steps will you take to avoid a nuisance as defined by District Rule 51? The district notes that the plant on one side is surrounded by residences. There are homes within 600 feet from the property line to the south and east. The nearest school is over 2,000 feet away. The nearest daycare is over 1,000 feet away. The district agrees with petitioner's nuisance mitigation measures of adding chemicals upstream, as well as keeping the cover on the affected aeration basin closed at all times. The district recommends that if the emergency variance is granted, that petitioner shall notify the district by 5 p.m. of each day of any odor complaints. And And if so, the petitioner could email me this information. So if the petitioner adds today relief for conditions 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7, the district notes that a nuisance could potentially occur. The first 3 permit conditions contain standards that prevent nuisances. Petitioner's additional request for relief from condition 5 is a request for relief from a condition that directly requires that a nuisance not be created, and it therefore does not support that this finding could be met. Likewise, condition 7 is a broad condition in that it includes all of the information provided with the application for the permit, and therefore could have far-reaching consequences that could contribute to nuisance. Finding D is that the purpose of the emergency variance request is not to avoid an application for an interim variance or noticing requirements. And for finding D3, which reads what consequences are likely to follow if you are required to wait until the next meeting date for the hearing board to consider your request. The district notes that petitioner is already in violation of permit condition 4 and conditions 1 through 3 of the permit for record keeping and for lacking visual displays. And that violation, of course, was issued yesterday. And for finding E, the hearing officer must make the following additional findings if the emergency is a result of a breakdown condition, as defined by District Rule 98. So there are 2 sets of questions under this finding with the total of 9 questions. The first 3 questions pertain to any breakdown. And so for finding E1, which reads the occurrence constitutes a breakdown condition under Rule 98, the district notes that petitioner's situation can be defined as a breakdown per Rule 98. Mm-hmm. For finding E2, which reads continued operation in a breakdown condition is not likely to create an immediate threat or hazard to public health or safety, petitioner provided a response to this finding, but did not specify reasonings for why there is no threat to public health or safety. So the district recommends petitioner offer more information to satisfy this finding. For finding E3, which reads continued operation in a breakdown condition will not interfere with the attainment or maintenance of any national or California ambient air quality standard. The district notes that there is no reason to believe that there will be interference with the attainment or maintenance of national or state standards, as hydrogen sulfide attainment is unclassified and doesn't contribute to ozone or PM 2.5. And so the next set of findings under E are conditional when the emergency is the result of the failure or malfunction of the air pollution control equipment or related operating equipment, and is the result of a breakdown condition. And so moving on to those findings for which the petitioner did not provide answers for these additional findings under finding E, but they are applicable, so I will provide the district's comments. So for finding E1, it reads, how long have you known about the breakdown? And when did you report it to the district? The district notes that the blower completely failed on October 26 at approximately 1 p.m. and had observed maintenance issues starting on September 7th, 2021. The breakdown was reported to the district October 27th at 1:35 p.m., just over 24 hours. So finding E2 reads, explain how you have attempted to comply with the district rules or permit conditions. So petitioner should provide an answer to satisfy that finding today. And finding E3 reads, what is the regular maintenance schedule for this equipment? When was the last maintenance or inspection of the equipment? And please attach the copies of the relevant maintenance records. The district notes that maintenance records were included as supplemental information with petitioner's response. Petitioner should explain the maintenance schedule to fully satisfy this condition. And for E4, has the equipment ever broken down before? The district notes that there was an emergency variance granted in 2015 for this permit due to the leaking PVC piping. The issue was corrected within 30 days, and the facility has had past breakdowns, but there have been only 2 breakdowns in the last 5 years. So for finding E5, it reads, describe the type of emissions and provide an estimate of the total excess emissions that will likely occur during the proposed variance period. And please discuss whether the emissions include toxic air contaminants and the proximity of the emissions to neighboring residences and businesses. And if you have calculated or modeled excess emissions, please attach the supporting documents. Otherwise, explain details such as how many hours over the permit limit the equipment would run or how current ppm readings compare to permit limits. So the district notes that petitioner did not provide calculations, estimates, or details of excess emissions for hydrogen sulfide. Petitioner should provide information for the chair of the board to consider. District engineering staff had estimated that the loss of the scrubber will result in an increase in hydrogen sulfide emissions of 2.98 times 10 to the negative fifth power, and that's in pounds per day, for each day the plant operates under this variance, if granted. And that assumes a throughput of approximately 50% and a capture efficiency of 80% and 99% hydrogen sulfide control efficiency. And then the last finding is E6, and that reads, how is this breakdown condition not the result of intentional or negligent conduct or disregard for air pollution rules? And the district notes that petitioner did not address the finding in their submission to the board and should clarify how they were satisfying this requirement during today's hearing. And I'm now going to move on to explain the district's position. The district's original position for relief from just permit condition 4 was to be that if the petitioner could satisfactorily meet the criteria for good cause, and if the granting of this variance would not cause a public nuisance, and petitioner could demonstrate compliance with other standards in the permit, then the district would not oppose the granting of this variance. Since petitioner is adding conditions 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7 for additional variance relief, the district's position is to oppose the variance request. The district opposes the expanded request due to the potential of petitioner to create or contribute to nuisance. I have some recommendations. If the board grants this variance request, the district suggests that it's granted for relief only from condition 4, and potentially to include only portions of conditions 1 through 3 that state that a visual display for instantaneous readings for pH, ORP values, and recirculation flow is needed if an appropriate alternative process can be used for those readings. And then the district also recommends the following if the variance is granted. First, that it not cause a public nuisance. Second, weekly reports for the daily readings for the parameters of 1 through 3 on the permit. And third, to contact me if there's an odor complaint by the end of each day by 5 p.m. And 4, maintain additional chemical usage upstream and to keep the aeration basins covered. And then the last one is to update the district upon completion of any repairs and or installation of any new equipment weekly, preferably on Thursdays. And that is the conclusion of the summary that I have prepared.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Before we proceed, Chair Rodriguez, are you going to be accepting the additional rules for which the variance was requested? As Mary noted, originally in the petitioner's original submission, they only cited Rule 4 under the rules for which the variance was requested, and they'd like to add Rules 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7. So are you going to be accepting those rules into record as additional to Rule 4?
Well, that question will be answered as I'm going to be asking a couple of questions, beforehand.
Okay.
Okay. So certainly, let me add a little bit of, conversation with Mary first. And then I'll get back, to you on that question. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. I just want to make sure we note it for the record. Thank you.
No, absolutely. Because certainly when we notice, that these variance requests, that they're we do not make changes. Along the stream, so they're pretty much, static, as I actually can say, because again of noticing requirements and any other, aspects that we're considering today. Particularly, allowing the district, to have, a full view of what it is, that has been requested, and also, for the officer who's hearing, also the opportunity to do the study, on every, so that we actually do not make again, those changes, on the fly, because we definitely need to ensure that not only city officials that actually comes into compliance, but we safeguard, the public safety. in this case. So, I mean, so let me actually, then ask, a couple of questions, to this. Certainly, as Don very well established, and also Mary, I'm also surprised, that all of these other conditions, of the permit has been added, kind of last minute, without conversation, even though, again, 24 hours had already passed, from the time, that they requested this. So I'm a little bit surprised about that one. I also understand, however, that this is an essential public service, and unfortunately, sometimes you operationally start with something and continue on discovery, and then you find other items, that need to be added to this. But no. So let's actually go back. That now that they actually have added, condition number 4, as I read here from the permit. Okay, so. Would there be any issues accepting, that the condition number 1 for the request at this point in time?
So condition number 1 is in reference to the pH. As we have discussed here at the district, we believe conditions 1 through 3 prevent public nuisance, and that's our concern. So our position on that had originally, we originally thought that petitioner would be able to still maintain the pH level. I had a conversation with Lori on Monday, and we talked about that. And so we were under the impression that the facility could still maintain the pH by, some alternative means based on the discussion I had. So our position is that the first 3 permit conditions, concern us for public nuisance. And we would be willing to we'd be willing to not oppose if they wanted to, the visual display aspect of those conditions, including in condition number 1, we would be okay with that portion, but we want them to maintain the pH, the ORP, and the flow.
Okay, sounds good. And lastly, I actually have to share with the City of Oceanside, we as a board, whichever hearing officer you actually get, even through, the regular board meetings, we cannot grant any variances, preventing, any nuisance. So we cannot go, into 5. So if there is a nuisance, a possibility of that, that's something that I cannot grant today. So it needs to be demonstrated to the satisfaction of the district, that these operations actually do not cause a public nuisance. So I will definitely like to strike, your request, for condition number 5. Okay, so conditions 1 through 4, 1 through 3, certainly, the district has been, again, and also the board, will make sure, that we actually have in front that of us, in this petition that you are providing an essential public service. Okay, so which is definitely very important. So, Ms. Rigby, very quickly and succinctly, why or who is actually going to be speaking, rather, for the City of Oceanside? Ms. Rigby?
Yeah, that some of the maintenance questions I'll let the operator speak to, but I wanted to add that we were unaware the NOV was going to include conditions 1 through 3 until literally yesterday afternoon at 3 p.m., 3:30. So I was under the impression condition 4 was the only concern here. So the last minute request came from the call from the inspector saying they were going to expand the NOV past what she told me on Friday last week.
Okay, well, that NOV stays regardless of what the decision is today, unfortunately.
Okay, but I just want to say, if the unit is offline for maintenance, those visual readings may not be an option to collect if the equipment's offline. So I just want to put it out there. If it's inoperable, it's inoperable. So,
May I say something, Lori and.
Who is this person again? Mr. Guzman?
My name is Rudy Guzman, to identify myself.
So again, I only have one question. 1 through 3, what's going on?
We can, yes, so we can take the readings if you'd like.
Correct.
On the panel, we can do that.
Yes, thank you. So, so question back, to Mr. Guzman. Because it seems as though I know that you're the operator now for that plant. So if we exclude 1 through 3 conditions, the variance from items 1 through 3, again, 5 is excluded, 1 through 3. What impact would that be for you?
Nothing. We can turn the unit on. We can take
Perfect.
ORP readings. We can take flow readings. We can take all the readings.
Good.
But the blower will not work.
Yeah.
We have never had toxic emissions in aeration basins, so the board should be aware of that. There are 0 toxins going into the scrubbers, so there is no likelihood of any kind of discharge of toxic pollutants. So you should be aware of that.
Thank
0
you.
in, 0 out. And then finally, no, I guess that is it.
No, I appreciate definitely, your transparency, on this item, Mr. Guzman, and definitely every single member of City of Oceanside on this one. So, that Madam Clerk, I will not be accepting, the conditions 1 through 3, 1, 2, 3, or 5, added to this petition today. So I'm actually, the hearing will only encompass, as originally stated and submitted, the condition number 4.
Okay, thank you. I will note for the record that no additional rules will be accepted for the variance and that we will be keeping with the original petition.
Appreciate that. So excellent. So let's actually, I have, 2 very keen questions here. Okay. I am a little bit disturbed, to be honest with you, when I hear, that the fan actually even came off the anchors and the whole thing sheared. Again, I have done, a lot of engineering work, so, and again, not exceptional. Because, it's, but I'm surprised. Because usually, that you can definitely anticipate, that some end of life, or bearings or belts that have been changed, things of that nature. So Mr. Guzman, I'm going to come to you right now, because I want to learn about how it is, that the city maintains, its equipment, because on the data that was provided, however, and again, that I reviewed it, but I do not understand every single item, because I don't have a standard operating procedure or anything like that. I see definitely some elements that the blower fan vibrating. Please inspect and or replace. That was on the 26th. So, certainly, I think is generally accepted, that there is a deterioration with time. Did you experience that with this fan, yes or no?
I would say I did not do the inspections. So I was going to defer to maybe Ryan Williams or Scott Spiegel as far as records of deterioration with that fan. I can say that normally we have a spare fan to replace it with.
Okay.
But because we started up another plant, we did use that spare recently. So just so you know that, but I will defer to Ryan Williams or Scott Spiegel.
Got it. Well, thank you so very much. Mr. Spiegel,
Yes.
then, could you please describe to me, the maintenance that you give, to this fan, and certainly, the history, let's say, for the last quarter, so June, July, August, have the report captured that this fan was vibrating in an unusual pattern?
Yes. No, we've checked the scrubbers every day. We go take the readings, inspect it, look for different vibrations. My operators are really aware of what's going on with them because they're actually hands-on every day.
Yeah.
So they're seeing it, they're taking the readings. So when they see the excessive vibration, it's something of concern. So I think back in, was it a couple months ago, we did write a report or a work order, and our work orders will say corrective or whatever, but it it should be written out on it as well, saying, hey, this has a slight vibration. Can you guys go look at it? So that's what happened then. And then going forward now, we come up, it had a slight vibration. So we did the same thing again. Hey, can you go look at it? I believe they found that the frame and stuff had a few minor cracks. And at that time, they were trying to figure out what our next step was going to be. And I could probably let Ryan speak at this point, and he could fill you in for that. And then, what do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, we had a few concerns that we were noting over there. And then
Mhm.
as we started to note those concerns, we started to tear into the, and as we started to tear into the unit, we discovered more and more other just fail points that were interior wise, that were not exactly noted from the exterior wise. And so we've done our due diligence to kind of do a full inspection to make certain that all aspects of this unit are in good running condition. But our preventative maintenance program is, we do plant maintenance on it pretty routinely as far as the greasings and the concerns over on those aspects. But by no means was this, something that was noted other than just a couple of days ago, as far as the work order coming out to say, listen, we got some vibration concerns. We'd like for you guys to take a look at it.
Yeah, I mean, but there's a pattern definitely, that your records, that identify almost weekly, and then after the September 7th, however, almost daily. That says 1510, that look at the vibration. This isn't the look at the vibration. So you can actually look at the vibration, but what did you do about the vibration?
That's when we started tearing into the unit a little bit deeper to find out what was causing it. And I mean, you can only do that if you're taking the system completely down. So that's what we got to the point where, hey, we need to do this. I mean, it could be running right now if we wanted to, but it would be a dangerous thing to do,
Yeah.
So I don't want to risk any of my employees going by something that's vibrating that, starting to vibrate that bad. So, and the only way to do it at that, is take the system down and look at it. So that's basically what we did that day.
So, and why did it actually sheared and came off the anchors? So did you look at the system, when it sheared and came off the anchors, or, beforehand? So that description kind of concerned me a little bit, because again, you actually establish, the safety of your employees. So I'm concerned about that. So.
Yeah, I understand your concern, but like I said, we did physically go look at it, and without completely going into it, not and checking the bearings and everything. It's one of those things you have to do the shutdown to be able to get in and inspect the whole thing. So,
why can the shutdown not be done when things actually started getting really very critical, like the 7th of September or the week after? Are there any logistics that you need to go into? Do you need to notify the APCD? Tell me the logistics of that, please.
So as far as September, I think that was just a walking by, visually seeing, hey, it's vibrating, and turn to work order, and just to see if they could do something about it.
Who's they? Maintenance, your own maintenance folks?
Maintenance department. So operations is communicating with the maintenance department, which we do every day, and they seen the vibration at that time, and they sent it over. And then it's like I said, it could be numerous items that could be wrong with this scrubber. It could be some kind of plugged media or something, which would cause this thing to vibrate. So we're running through all these tests trying to figure out why this thing's happening, and try to narrow it down to the point of, is it the bearings? Is it the blower itself? The housing, or whatever it is, and then stuff takes time. It's not a science where you can pinpoint it down to one thing right now. So
I know. We scientists do the same thing too. It takes a lot of points. Okay, so definitely appreciate your feedback on this one. My my question is, I mean, why could this fan not taken out of service? I mean, particularly if you actually have redundancies, I would imagine that there's some redundancies to get the system actually continue operating, and looked at really more comprehensively.
I mean, I don't know where you got the redundancy.
No, I'm just asking, whether or not. I mean, I said I would imagine that you have redundancies. If you actually don't have redundancies,
No, we
now
don't.
that
We
okay.
do not have redundancy. We
We
have,
don't, Scott, may I say something?
yes.
So we will have spare parts for critical things. We do not have redundant units.
Okay.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Okay, I mean, I just wanted to see, whether or not you can actually shift, I mean,
No.
or increase on variable hairs, I mean, on BHPs, I mean, if it's variable, so that you can actually shift, either by location, I mean, or
No.
additional, no, you don't have anything.
No,
Okay,
no, we
so-
don't have that kind of redundancy, no.
Okay.
May I, Scott, was there a response to did she say September work request to inspect the unit?
I think September 7th or about, that's when I actually said, I mean, take a look at from the packet that you submitted.
Yeah.
I mean, the fan started vibrating.
I don't know
something like
what, I can't remember what the response was, but it still actually started working decent again, where the vibration kind of subsided, and because they went and we looked at it. I don't know, I don't know if you had to tack something down or something at that time or not. I don't know if that's in the
No, I just have the work order, the main task, that is assigned. I mean, like you're a RAM, I mean, the project or something. The problem that was done, that its status is complete, but it didn't, in some of this, definitely it says, routine, scrubber blower fans, they, 30 p.m. But I do not see, other than here, again, I mean, on the review, that is like,
and I believe at that time,
escalate this and what happened after escalation.
and I believe at that time, I think we flushed the media as well.
Okay.
So, and then went back into process, and it was fine.
Okay.
So,
So
and then
yeah.
that, like I said, then it eventually came to the 26th, and that's when we noticed it again.
Okay. I mean, I think the 25th, it's actually indicates, that you actually have, I mean, the severe vibration as well. Again, I'm just looking, I mean, from the work orders, here that were submitted, I mean, as part of your packet. I'm trying to kind of also build, I mean, the story about this fan. I mean, just like you did. Okay. I mean, perfect. So, I mean, and I see certainly, that the parts and everything else for replacement are ordered. I mean, so who's going to be doing your job, once your parts actually get here?
Our maintenance department.
Okay, so it's not that you actually have to issue a contract to a third party or anything like that. You pretty much have the manpower to effect these changes. Is that true?
For this particular scrubber, yes.
Okay, that helps. Trust me. As you know, I mean, issuing some of those POs and getting the budget. I mean, it's a little bit tough sometimes.
It's really tough at this time.
I know. So that's why I'm saying I'm really very happy that I mean, it's personnel from Oceans that are actually doing this. I mean, question, who would like to answer me the question, why wasn't this not reported to the APCD within 2 hours of discovery?
I'll probably take that one as well. I mean, it was probably a failure on my part. It's been such a long time since we've had any shutdowns or anything that I probably
It's just a failure.
failure to oversee it.
And that's okay, actually. I mean, to be honest with you, it happens. I mean, we're humans, okay? I mean, so, and I bet that once you actually saw that fan failing, I mean, so aggressively, I mean, maybe your attention just came completely, I mean, to the repair of the fan and what was going on, I mean, at the plant.
True.
Yeah, so I mean, at this point, I mean, what you're trying to do certainly is to manage the crisis that you have in your hands, because again, you are actually providing an essential public service.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's so. Certainly you've been, issued an NOV on that one. So, I mean, and that actually does not change. So, I mean, is there anything else, that the city of Oceanside would like to add? How are you going to be preventing this from happening? I mean, this is not correcting. Correcting is what you're doing right now. I mean, prevention is that eliminating recurrence. What type of elements are you going to be adding, I mean, to your system or to your PM schedule, or, I mean, the annual, I mean, the review?
I think we do very well anyways, but so we're going to keep up the same type of maintenance and everything we're doing on these things. Like I said, we normally would have a blower, and an extra blower on hand, and it wouldn't have been a problem, but for whatever reason, it's 6 months out right now. So it's kind of out of our hands. We've already requested it, got it on order, and it's 6 months out. It's 6 months out. There's nothing we could do. So our maintenance crew is diving into this one that's here. They're rebracing the framing, putting brand new bearings on the shaft, making sure there's nothing on the impeller or anything, the propeller, for any kind of vibration variance that it would cause. So we're going to do everything we can in-house here to get this thing back up sooner than 6 months. And like I said, it'll happen here pretty quick.
Okay.
And I would like to add, if I may.
Yes, please.
That we will order 2 blowers, and that we will maintain the scrubber media inspection and cleaning on a regular basis. So I think on paper, that's what we have, and we will continue that program so that the media buildup is not an issue moving forward. So that would be kind of a rotational preventive maintenance, a little bit more robust, if you will. And then making sure at all times that we do have, since we have long lead times, that we will always have a spare blower, recirculation pump, pH, ORP probes on hand at all times.
Yes.
Mr. Guzman, definitely, I do appreciate you looking at that, because definitely that it takes us not to prevention. Okay, I mean, and quick action, I mean, by the city of Oceanside. Certainly, I mean, all the information today is recorded, so, but, I mean, my duty today is to find good cause, to grant you a variance. When you come to the board, I mean, in the future for that interim regular variance, that's where, I mean, the conditions are going to be a little bit, I mean, much stricter than what they are today. And so definitely, be prepared, because the questioning is not good cause, is whether or not we can actually make the findings, I mean, for regular variance, which are a lot stricter. And in addition to that, I will definitely be requiring for you, I mean, to be working on a timeline. Anybody who knows Phil Marie know that you need to provide a timeline, because it's not you telling me, but what is it that you're going to be doing, excuse me, by when, I mean, to address this issue. Okay. So, I mean, that will definitely be something that I will be asking, I mean, for you to present on during the interim. If not, it will, you can almost guarantee that it will be a condition for the interim. But today, though, we're actually, I mean, that looking at good cause. In addition to that, I think, that one of the elements, that you need to look into as well, I mean, that is how, the training of the people, or maybe, some 5S conditions out there when you say if this actually breaks down, I mean, notification needs to go, I mean, to the APCD. And internally, you may actually have to divert that, from Mr. Spiegel. I mean, again, just what I'm saying right now, to some other person that could do the administrative, aspect, what Mr. Spiegel actually, concentrates, on the crisis management, if a breakdown actually happens, so a little bit better coordination may actually be warranted. So something that you need to look into for definitely, the next hearing. Okay, but today again is a good cause. Mayor, anything else, from City of Oceanside before I close, this hearing?
Just one comment, please.
Yes, absolutely.
I am a little confused as to why Ms. Rigby was told that we only have to request for condition 4. Yesterday, she was advised additional conditions were added, but then we could not change it from the original request. Why is that okay that we were told at the last minute we had to add others and then told that we cannot at this hearing? I guess I'm a little confused with that.
Chair Rodriguez, I can speak to this in terms of the hearing board rules. So what happens is when you actually submitted the, when I received the petition from Ms. Lori Rigby, what happens is that gets distributed right away to the chair and to APCD staff. It also gets posted in a public domain as part of our legal noticing requirements. Once that is done for an emergency variance, anything after that, like it can't be modified without the chair's permission. So either way, I was notified of these after the fact. And as Chair Rodriguez also noted that it was, 24 hours after the petition had already been submitted. So since it had already been publicly noticed and distributed, nothing could be added after that point for this emergency variance. However, I did, as noted earlier in this meeting, I did receive the petition for the interim variance and the regular variance. And on those petitions, these additional rules were added. So during the hearings for the interim variance and the regular variance, those rules can be spoken to, okay? But after today, I'm going to be noticing the interim variance and the regular variance portion of your petition. And so changes will not be able to be made. So if after today you want to add, let's say rules, 9, 10, 11, we'll have to come back to the board during those meetings. So as I'm stating, I'll repeat it again. For the interim variance and for the regular variance, because those rules were already included on the original petition, they can be heard during the meetings that are coming up on November 18th and December 9th. But for today, because they were not included in the original petition and that petition had already been noticed, that's why the chair had to have the discussion with you all and determine whether or not to accept those additional variances into record today, which she did not.
Okay, I think I understand. I'm not sure what that means in terms of the weight of the violations, but that's okay.
So I can explain a little bit more to you. If you're concerned about, notices of violation. So would you allow me to close this part of the hearing and then we can do some administrative housekeeping? How about that?
Sure.
Okay. So I think, that will be the order. Yes, absolutely. I think, that it would definitely be beneficial to all of us, to do that. Okay. So, and
sorry
yes.
interrupt. It looked like Mary's hand is up, and if she has a comment, I might have one too. So.
Yes, please go ahead,
Thank
Mary.
you. Thank you. Sorry.
Oh, no. Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say, Rudy, Dawn explained the reasoning for not being able to include the additional conditions from the clerk of the board's perspective. But I just wanted to also let you know that I had a conversation with Lori on Monday, and we talked about that as well. And it was just deemed, not to be necessary at that time. And so I think that's why it wasn't originally put on the petition for today. And then, Lori reached out and we talked about just bringing it up in today's meeting. instead. So I just wanted to clarify that we did have a conversation about that on Monday before the NOV was issued. And then Bill Marie, if you're moving on to getting ready to close out, I just want to reiterate the district's concerns briefly. We're concerned primarily about nuisance. So if the, if the variance is granted, we would appreciate a nuisance, recommendation along with the other recommendations I had suggested earlier. We're concerned about sensitive receptors in the nearby residences. And we are, pleased that in the petitioner's petition, they identified a fix that might be up and running is in the order of 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and we would just be pleased if progress was made in that area before a potential interim variance hearing. And we're also happy to hear that petitioner intends to order additional blowers as well.
Oh, I had one more question. Sorry, I meant to ask it earlier, and then I will be okay. You had mentioned roughly X amount of pounds per day of emissions. Where did that number come from? Of H2S, hydrogen sulfide?
Yeah, so I consulted with our engineering staff, and they were able to put together some calculations. They provided me an entire, spreadsheet on it, but basically they compared the controlled emissions, so with a scrubber, and then they compared it to uncontrolled emissions, which is just the cover, and just determined that it was 99% efficient for hydrogen sulfide with a scrubber and 80%, approximately 80% efficient with a cover. And that assumes a 50% throughput at the facility. And they provided me with hourly, daily, and annual estimates. And so that's where that number came from. It was in the amount of uncontrolled emissions or excess emissions of H2S.
Oh, so the calculations, that all makes sense. But they're assuming an initial input. Where did they get that number from to get the percent removal?
Well, they looked at the information I believe originally submitted with the application and the HRA and all of the data available to them, and they had to use some assumptions to get those numbers.
Mr. Guzman, I mean, definitely that information should be shared with you. I mean, that if you request it, I mean, from the district, that would be something that I would encourage you to do. At this point in time, so I think, that after I hear from Ms. Rigby, I mean, and Mr. Jack, who came first, actually, I would definitely like to close this part, of the hearing, because I think, that the second strategic part would also be beneficial to you. Okay, I mean, that Mr. Jacques.
Mary actually addressed any comments I was going to make, so she beat me to it. I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rigby? You're on mute. You're muted.
All right, sorry about that.
No problem.
I more have a question about the nature of the variance and the temporary fix. So if we do have that temporary fix in place, can we hold on to that variance in case something happens in the interim before we replace the blower permanently?
Okay, that will go to strategy.
Okay.
Let's actually put that into strategy.
Okay, thank you.
Good. So I mean, sorry, I like to compartmentalize, things, so that we're clear on each one of the elements, if that is okay. Perfect. So any other comments, because I really need to close this. I mean, I'm granting you the variance. So, but I'm an Oceanside resident, my dear. So I'm in your backyard. Okay. So, so let's actually close that. Let me actually allow, some clarification with Mary on this one. So Mary, I certainly am looking at some conditions here, for the emergency variance. And Mr. Guzman, and I know that your presentation had to do with the fact that they had added 1, 2, 3, and 5, conditions number 1, 2, 3, and 5, to this hearing today, but they actually have been eliminated. So I want to make sure, however, that the conditions that we're actually looking at right now are such, that address condition number 4, for which this variance is going to be granted. Okay, so so there's a visual display, for pH and throughput So I think, that, I mean, that Mr. Guzman continues to have that condition is active. So they need to provide that. Is that a condition that you will still want to see? I mean, as part of this, hold it, sir.
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
I don't, sorry, go ahead and finish. I'm sorry, talking
Thank
before you
you.
stop.
Okay, I mean, so if, they can actually get the readings.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'll verify with Scott, but you can turn the blower on, you can turn the scrubber on, turn the recirc pumps on and get readings, even though there's no blower. We can do that. Is that correct, Scott?
Yeah, that's correct. But yeah, there's no media, so I mean, there's no foul air coming into it. So I mean, it's just gonna be pretty much chemical usage.
Okay.
So if that's okay, we can do that. I don't know what the benefit of it. I don't know what the benefit of it is, but
well, see, so that the problem is that I am trying to eliminate that from you guys right now. So if you allow me to work with Ms. Mahoney right now, maybe we can summarize. That's my only request. Okay. So allow me to work with Ms. Mahoney first. Okay.
Sounds good.
Going back, I mean, so I mean, that since we are not eliminating or modifying condition number 1, I mean, that can I eliminate that, I mean, from the conditions that you actually stated, into your presentation?
Can you, so are you asking if you're only going to grant for condition 4? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, that is what was originally presented to us. And we, we're under the impression that petitioner could meet conditions 1 through 3. It sounds like they're stating they still can.
Correct.
So
do you still need weekly reports on conditions 1 through 3?
No, if they're stating that it's not going to be affected and they can do it, then then I don't think we would require that.
Exactly. Excellent. I mean, so again, I'm gonna go down. I mean, those things. Thanks. Now, hold it here. Please allow me. Allow me to finish. I mean, so I'm looking right now, however, at the chemical usage. I mean, and the covered. You need to give me that wording. I mean, that Mary, because I truly believe, that would be and the update of the district, because I want a report given to the district at the end of this variance. Okay, so those are the conditions that I'm actually looking at. I mean, and I actually have a question about readings on hydrogen sulfide. Okay, because I mean, definitely that causes, I mean, the olfactory saturation. And certainly for sensitive receptors, particularly in this area, I would like to actually have, I mean, hydrogen sulfide readings, I mean, that with a portable instrument. Okay, so that would be mine. That needs to be, that needs to happen. So chemical usage, I mean, that could you please repeat that condition for me, please?
So what I had suggested as a recommendation, and the way that I worded it was just that they maintain the additional chemical usage upstream, which they described in their petition as one of their mitigation efforts, and to keep the aeration basins covered. And that would be pretty much at all times, unless petitioner has a reason, that they could, inform us for when they would need to not have it covered. That would be reasonable, like some sort of maintenance reason, but otherwise, those were stated by the petitioner in their petition, and we would like to see that on any board order.
Perfect. Good. Okay, so I mean, so let me just then proceed with everything else. Okay, so I mean, Mr. Guzman, just listen to it. I mean, so just listen, okay, and then we can discuss if you had any issues. Okay, so I mean, so I mean, I hereby actually grant, I mean, the request for variance, and hold it here. I need to actually take a look at the number, and with all the computers that I have here, monitors, I mean, I cannot get to the right one. Perfect. Perfect. I mean, so I do not see the variance number. I mean, Madam Clerk, can you actually help me with that variance number?
The rule for which the variance was requested was Rule 4. Is that what
Okay.
you're asking?
The variance request, that number, 4,000, whatever it is.
The petition number is 4524.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, that's why you're, yeah, so I hereby grant the variance, I mean, to petition 4524, I mean, to the city of Oceanside, and finding a good cause on the for I mean the permit to operate, and is the permit to operate is okay. APCD 2006-PTO-920530 for condition number 4 only. Okay. I mean, the good cause is found, I mean, based on the following. I mean, the breakdown of the equipment needs to be restored. I mean, good cause is, I mean, the final, because definitely it meets the Rule 98 conditions for breakdown. Number 2, I mean, the petitioner actually is an essential public service for the city of Oceanside, and therefore, I mean, that this condition, for the operation needs to be addressed promptly. Number 3, I mean, that without granting a variance, I mean, and allowing them to operate, it would actually cause an additional public health impact, I mean, to I mean, to the city of Oceanside, and actually to the services that they actually provide. Conditions, I mean, this is also, I mean, granted it because the petitioner has filed an interim/regular variance, I mean, and it will be heard in the next scheduled board meeting. So conditions actually that need to be met. Okay, I mean, the petitioner needs to maintain the chemical usage upstream, I mean, as a condition of controlling any excess, I mean, the odors, so that there's no impact there's no, I mean, the nuisance reports. The aeration basin, I mean, needs to be covered, I mean, at all times. In addition to that, I mean, if there are any nuisance reports, they need to be reported to the APCD, I mean, by the end of the day. And that would be a close of day for the district. I would actually say 4 p.m. Daily, not to exceed 4 p.m. daily. So that way, they can actually have any action. And in addition to that, you will actually be monitoring daily, I mean, hydrogen sulfide levels. Now, I want for the petitioner to provide a weekly report, I mean, to Ms. Mahoney, I mean, by Friday at noon, okay, for the length of these emergency variants. That includes status on that you have maintained your chemical usage. Is a yay or nay? I mean, have you maintained the aeration basin covered? Any deviations from that also need to be reported weekly. I mean, also on your weekly report to Ms. Mahoney, you're going to include, I mean, any nuisance reports that you actually have received. And also, I mean, your daily accumulative daily emissions. So every single day, you're going to be, getting, your hydrogen sulfide, I mean, monitoring and reporting to Ms. Mahoney on a weekly basis. Now, my question is, are we clear on those conditions? I don't think they're onerous. I think, they are, they're good, I mean, for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm clear on that. If I could receive a copy of the calculations so I can make sure I'm consistent with the APC recommendation for those emissions.
Okay. Good. I mean, any other comments on, what I just, granted you? No? Okay, perfect. So let's actually, I mean, well, I mean, good luck, definitely repairing, this unit. I mean, and thank you so very much, I mean, for accepting, I mean, these conditions. As I mentioned, I mean, I think, that it will be good, for everybody. So, I mean, oh, I am so sorry. Don't close. I mean, no, close that one. I actually included the nuisance. Okay. Now let's actually talk about, the interim variance. Okay, no, so I mean, so now, just as Madam Clerk actually so eloquently actually noted, when we notice, I mean, there are many realms with that. You work in government. I mean, it's the city, the county, the state. I mean, so it's pretty much, I mean, done at that time. It is very unlikely that, the hearing board during your interim slash, I mean, the regular variance is going to look at any other rules. I mean, excuse me, conditions of your permit, so because again, the noticing is really very clear. If if the Madam Clerk, has not issued that out, if you want to talk to her, that's something that you need to work with Madam Clerk right now before she posts that, publicly. Okay, so you actually have a little bit of homework for the next hour or so. Then
Yes.
on your
Madam Chair, can I
Yeah.
just say something real quick about that?
Yeah.
So as I stated earlier, yes, they have a pretty tight timeline to make any changes to the actual petition that they submitted.
Yep.
However, if you do have additional documents, and I'm talking like if you have additional evidence that you'd like to present, I can accept that up to 7 days prior. However, what I'm talking about right now is when I make the notice, it's harder to make changes to your overall application. So that first page where you noted rules and things like that, I would make sure that that is completely accurate. And then around 2 p.m. today, I will be sending out that notice. But if in the interim you come up with, let's say, a written timeline or something that you want to submit into record, you can do that up to 5 p.m. on November 11th for the interim variance hearing. After that time, that is when anything that is submitted or changed will need to go before the entire hearing board for a vote to be accepted into the record.
Very good. No, thank you. Yes, certainly that was part of the strategy that I was going to mention. But that timeline, is really very critical for you. So let's actually take a look at the interim slash regular variance. When we meet next time, and should the interim variance be granted, definitely your emergency variance ends, okay, on that day. So the conditions of today would actually end, when you're issued the interim variance. So you cannot operate onto 2 different variances. The interim certainly, has a specific date, for longevity, and then the regular, variance up to a year. But that we want to bring you back into compliance as quickly as possible. For us, to the board to grant you an interim variance, we need to make sure that those 6 findings can be made. Was it unreasonable? Was it, what is the benefit, of the granting your variance, with regards not to the operations and also to the excess emissions. So that information, Ms. Rigby, that you just requested, is really very important, and as just, Ms. Dunn actually, as Madam Clerk rather, had said, any additional item in preparation to solidify your presentation, if you submit that 7 days beforehand, fantastic. But if not, it's up to the board to either accept it or not accept it. However, even if we do not accept any additional exhibits, that doesn't actually limit you from presenting verbally during the meeting. Okay, but it's a lot easier, to have that information presented to the board, so that we are also prepared to, provide everybody the benefit, that they deserve. Okay. So that will be the strategy that you're going to be going forward to. As you heard me say, if you actually don't have a variance, I'm going to make it a condition. So, that will be really very nice, to have. And you actually pretty much have until the 11th, to prepare that, timeline, for example, and provide it to the, Madam Clerk of the board to actually provide that, to, the board members. So there is definitely flexibility, but there's going to be a lot of work, on your part, on this one. So I think, that, you're in a very good position here. And what you actually have presented is really very good. But I will encourage you to be a little bit forward thinking on the preventative action. Mr. Guzman presented great things, I mean, the additional equipment, backup, I mean, you actually can service it, you do not need to go to third parties, I mean, that normally, I mean, to get these things repaired. This is fantastic, I mean, on your presentation. So, I mean, please go ahead and do that. Okay, so, I mean, questions and comments. I only have, 10 minutes. Unfortunately, I have another meeting at 9 that it's my meeting, so I need to go to. Yes, Ms.
One question, please. So I asked this question earlier. I'm sorry we didn't address it, I don't think. If we do get granted an interim variance and we do get that backup blower serviced and installed, can we leave the variance in place until the permanent fix has been executed? Or does installing the backup blower that's been machined to fit cancel the variance?
Well, I mean, that's normally how that happens. Okay, I mean, so that it goes into you working with Mr. Stegel and Guzman and everybody else to see what would be a reasonable timeline. So that's the nice thing about having a timeline, because it says maybe installation and you need to test it or things of that nature. So you need to be strategic on this one, but normally, yes, upon installation and you're operating, this what actually just avoids the variance. It ends on that day, usually. But be forward thinking, okay? Yep. Anything else? Perfect. I think, that what you actually have presented here and going forward, I mean, that with those, I mean, the elements that you have actually asked and presented is positioning you fairly well. But again, this is only one person, I mean, so there's also, 4, I mean, counterparts on the other side. And certainly we're going to be looking very, very closely at the environmental impact to the neighborhood. Okay. So that's my last, those are my parting words. Any other comments? Questions? Well, thank you so very much, for coming. I mean, and definitely working, I mean, to repair, I mean, and correct, this condition. So now we actually need to look at preventative action. Okay. So thank you so very much. I mean, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.